8, but really effectively round 6 of the 2026 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and in this beautiful home sweet home setup, we will take a look at the race that we were destined to dominate, but that sadly, as somebody else was destined to dominate in his very own way. And I have to say, probably for the first time, we also are relatively big fans of, one of our main competitors. So everything in this exclusive race reaction, we will discuss this pulsating Monaco Grand Prix, which obviously wasn't just decided by what happened in qualifying, but especially by the many occurrences, reliability-wise, penalty-wise, and of course also crash-wise, just like, for example, my race, which you probably just witnessed, just met 24 hours prior, that decided the final outcome of this iconic race. Again, pretty much the longest standing venue on the Formula 1 calendar. So over here, we will tell you everything from the perspective of the Ferrari's biggest fan, why it ended up in tears for the Monegasque Prince Charles Leclerc, then why maybe the new young Prince of Monaco, has officially been crowned. And of course, what this situation then means for the Drivers' Championship, because now we, of course, have maybe a new Ferrari #1. What do you think? And of course, what it also means for the Constructors' Championship, some of the new directives have actually surprisingly, not changed the pecking order, but not in the way that maybe we expected. And of course, we will then talk about, why I haven't managed to convert that amazing second Monaco pole position into, of course, my maiden Monaco Grand Prix victory, and why usually, probably in the next few years, there won't be so many trophies for this race reaction, the very, very popular series. So, what can we say? The weekend started in a beautiful sunshine. Especially Leclerc was pumping in the fastest laps with Hamilton, especially in practice 1, practice 2. But, on the Saturdays, in practice 3 and at the beginning of the qualifying, you started to sense that there were more cars in it, not just our beautiful scarlet red Ferraris. And there was a little bit of a surprise, because we really expected to dominate and that this would be fight between Leclerc and Hamilton. Leclerc obviously newlywed, but also newly signed to the multi-year deal into what effectively will be the 4th decade, of the new millennia, right, into 2030s, which, on the evidence of this race, I have to say, I will call it first, might have been a mistake on the Scuderia Ferrari side, and we will exactly examine why. So, when it then came to the qualifying, the qualifying, pretty much can tell you, what the half of the result, of the race will be. It was really paramount that we would be on pole position, and it was going relatively well in qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, but you had guys, especially Antonelli with Verstappen, really pumping in good lap times that would threaten, what appeared to be a smack, pretty much a slam dunk pole position, for one of our Ferrari drivers, most likely Leclerc, who sadly and surprisingly, maybe, even though I've already obviously tried the new Formula 1 2026 car, so I can tell that there is definitely significantly less downforce than there was, the year prior, or especially in 2024 when we were absolutely flying. So I can understand that Leclerc was pushing it, but obviously losing it almost at Massenet in the Q3 put him on a back foot, because he obviously kind of flat-spotted the tires, right? So they were not in ideal condition. So he would then only have, he would do the same what I would do, right? Which is, he would come out, put in the bunker lap, then cool down, and then go for another lap. So nothing was really lost, but it also meant that when Leclerc put in that bunker lap, it just put him on pole position. You really knew that he had to improve, right? Same for Hamilton. The stability of the car wasn't that good, but you had the McLarens were not really competitive. Russell again looking out of sorts, and obviously Hadjar being nowhere. But Hadjar's teammate Verstappen was coming to the fore, and surprisingly, the youngest championship leader in the history was just showing everybody in the Mercedes-Benz, which was probably the 4th fastest car, at least before the Monaco Grand Prix started. Nobody expected them to be very, very competitive, but bang, he just disposed Verstappen for pole position, and Leclerc, lost it in a tabak. I mean, yeah, it's a blind corner. You really have to throw it there, but obviously, little bang with the wall. He was right on the time, and I believe, in that final sector, we often set the fastest times. He also struggled a lot with the traffic, so bit unlucky, but put himself into that position by basically, making mistakes, and eventually that's why he even ended up without the points, while Hamilton, as a 7-time champion, obviously chasing that Ayrton Senna's record of getting 8 pole positions. That's 8, not pole positions, excuse me, but podiums here at the Monaco Grand Prix. Yeah, he was, doing very well. I have to say, nice steady drive. But of course, the ultimate pace wasn't there. So Hamilton lined up 3rd, Leclerc 4th, with Antonelli, getting all important pole position. And after obviously all the celebrities flocked on the beautiful, Sunday early afternoon to witness, one of the races of the season, the crown jewel of Formula One, the Monaco Grand Prix. Once the 5 red lights went out, Antonelli did a great job. He's probably gotten the best start, but the great thing was that Red Bull immediately retired. Verstappen broke down, the engine just died, like in his own words. Leclerc had to take avoiding action, but almost gotten Hamilton. And obviously with Hamilton and Leclerc then being 2nd and 3rd, we were like, okay, we can do something about Antonelli here. But he really checked out, and I thought, in the first 5, 10, 15 laps that he was really saving, that Hamilton in particular was really saving some speed, and so did Leclerc. But you could see that Leclerc, for example, having a problem making a chicane on, one too many occasions, that actually, the ultimate pace probably really wasn't there. And it became clear, that for us the great thing obviously was that the Hajar behind, who ended up, being 4th in front of Russell, was nowhere, so were not the McLaren. So we immediately, within 20-25 laps out of the 78 lap race, we had that pit stop window, and we decided to over here go with Hamilton first. So, but again, at that point Hamilton was almost 10 seconds behind Antonelli, which was very, very disappointing, to be perfectly honest, from our standpoint. At one point it would look like that he would be within 3 seconds, then he would be able to maybe do the undercut, which was powerful over here. But in the end of the day, it played no role. Hamilton then also got the penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Lots of drivers got the penalty over there. I think it's simply because they always attack the pit lane entry so hard, even during the game, not like me, who's always very careful with that. So I think all of the penalties were well deserved, but strange that I think 8 drivers have actually gotten these penalties, so that's a lot. But yeah, thankfully for Hamilton, obviously, what happened was that there was a bit of the issue. So yes, when he's gotten that penalty, he changed to the hard tires. Then so did Leclerc, so did Antonelli, and Antonelli was leading by over 10 seconds. So he pretty much checked out. But when Lance Stroll hit the barrier at the lap of 60, that was because the Monaco Grand Prix is obviously held in June, so high temperatures, you could see beautiful sunny weather. The summer is really properly here. We are loving it. But the track surface at the La Rascasse, right, which is that kind of almost like a hairpin line where Michael Schumacher lost that coveted 2006 pole position that's in front of the La Rascasse fancy restaurant. The surface was breaking down in between there, and especially heading into the Anthony Knox chicane, obviously named after the designer of this amazing Monaco Grand Prix, which of course that Louis Vuitton trophy also is designed after in the pure shiny golden colors. So you will know some answers to my quiz. What happened was that he simply, missed the braking point and hit the barrier over there. But a bit of a silly mistake, because you really don't want to brake late there. It's a really early turn in. So, he did make a mistake, but as a result, there was a safety car. So, Ferrari double stacked. So Leclerc was really upset about it. That was strange, actually, that we did it, but I guess we didn't want to disadvantage Hamilton. He could then take the penalty, and we were then racing, right? So we were now right behind Antonelli. It would be maybe a bit unfair if now Antonelli would lose it when he led pretty much 80 or 75% of the race. But yeah, after the restart, well, we didn't really get started, because one of the biggest disasters happened when the safety car peeled off. Obviously Hamilton was right pretty much on Antonelli's gearbox, ready to attack him, but Leclerc, and this is, I have to say, big mistake. I mean, you could have seen my mistake that was on lap 1. I can understand, that sometimes, after the restart, I pretty much faced the same thing. Hit the brakes, they locked up, right? I went straight on, and, all that hard work, all getting the pole position was, pretty much in the wall. It didn't cost me anything. I could still return back, but then I was running pretty much in a 7th, 8th place, and, my chances for the Monaco Grand Prix went, but for Leclerc, there was the podium gone, obviously chances for a victory, but, chances for any points, because his left suspension, just like Stroll's, was broken. Obviously, he was very upset, but surprisingly didn't really blame himself, even though I believe that was simply his mistake of just being tough on the brakes, being on a limit, and it simply didn't work out this time, which I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often to him. He's fantastic, driver around Monaco, but like for me, I always struggle, to slow the car down, to some of the turns, and it's, where you really can make a lot of the difference, even though sometimes slow in, fast out is probably the best and definitely the safest way in Monaco. Leclerc ended up in a barrier at the final chicane. That brought up actually a red flag. We had about a half an hour delay as we tried to obviously, clean up the surface at that final chicane, very uncharacteristic for Leclerc to crash out. But yeah, that's 3rd place, valuable 15 points gone, and frankly speaking, that's his status as #1 driver at Ferrari gone, because Hamilton, obviously by finishing 2nd, is now over 10 points ahead of him, and is also 2nd in the championship, whereas Leclerc will stay 4th. And with Russell non-scoring, same for Norris, for example, who retired. Obviously, Verstappen at the beginning, this could have been great for us. We could have been 2nd and 3rd, in the championship easily if Leclerc would have made it. So it's a real pity, because he just signed the contract, obviously newly married, but you can see that maybe it gave him that cushion, that comfort, and maybe he's not seeking, that ultimate limit, which, for example, Antonelli is excelling at. So here, that pretty much means that maybe Antonelli, as an Italian driver, we are loving, listening to the Italian anthem. Is he gonna replace Hamilton when Hamilton decides to hang his boots, or, was Leclerc really, the future of the Ferrari, or wasn't it, this Valentino Rossi, like, with the haircut, and this looking young-faced teenager who's racing for Mercedes. I mean, if Ferrari gives him an offer, he will come, right? But I can't believe, how much he has improved. He's destroying Russell, but also, frankly speaking, he destroyed us. And maybe for the first time, I was actually happy that after the restart, after the red flag, obviously Hamilton's gotten slightly better start from a 2nd place, but I kind of didn't want Hamilton to win because Antonelli deserved it. And sometimes you just have to say your competition was better. And, hopefully Leclerc can recover and Hamilton can keep up the strong run and get the first Ferrari win. I cannot believe we are not celebrating over here, but yeah, to be perfectly honest, a master championship like drive like Antonelli, no driver who has won 5 races on a trot, his first 5 victories, that's a record-breaking start to his winning the winning career in Formula 1, has ever gone, to lose the championship. And, I would bet on him. He's leading by 66 points from Hamilton, and wow, this was some performance. So, how did it end up? Let's turn around the Scuderia Red Retina iMac to find out. So here we have Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Look at this. We were kind of like, yes, he is lucky, but here, I mean, he was absolutely bossing it. Obviously, Leclerc, I thought, had the ultimate pace, but here, Antonelli, that was a brilliant performance. And, again, he still won by over 6 seconds from Hamilton, despite, obviously, after, the restart, we only had 8 proper racing laps. So Lewis, again, great job, second place in a succession, and this is what he needs to be the outside bet now for a championship. Hopefully with Leclerc. 3rd, Isaac Hadjar, so this was just confirmed, so he won't face any investigation. Hamilton also faced the investigation under the safety car, because obviously some of the drivers will be driving a bit too slowly, but they haven't caught up to the safety car, so both Hamilton and Hadjar were cleared, so he will keep his podium, even though it was a terrible performance by Red Bull. 4th, Oscar Piastri, very anonymous. 5th, Liam Lawson, the best result of his Formula 1 career. 6th, Arvid Lindblad, the Racing Bulls, surprised over here. Lindblad, really benefited from the mayhem that was caused by Russell, who's gotten a drive-through penalty, who after the restart backed off the whole field, and Hülkenberg then hit, Sainz, and caused him to retire, which obviously also helped Lindblad. 7th, Pierre Gasly, he's also gotten that penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Alpine is actually appealing it, so they might have finished 3rd. doesn't influence anything on our side. 8, Alexander Albon, 4 points. Should really thank Carlos Sainz for executing a good strategy of holding the field up to promote him there. 9, then Esteban Ocon for Haas, 2 points, and 10, Sergio Perez. At the moment, Cadillac still keeps that 1 point. If again it would be found that Perez really started too high up from his grid slot, then obviously it would go to Fernando Alonso. So either Cadillac or Aston Martin, they will score the points. At the moment, obviously it is the Cadillac, because Nico Hülkenberg, who originally would have been behind Albon, he obviously took out Sainz, gotten a 10-second penalty, and that's why he is, of course, out of the points. Otherwise, that would be first points for him. Antonelli also gotten the fastest lap and led every single lap. So this was a fantastic Grand Slam, and I have to say, he's the driver of the day. If he wins the title, he will definitely deserve it. We don't want the Benz driver to obviously win, but this is a ticket to Ferrari for him. The way I see it, again, it's still like, is he really at the championship level? But the driving, look at this. I mean, Andrea Kimi Antonelli leading for Mercedes-Benz, always winning, just like when Michael Schumacher was winning German national anthem, Italian national anthem. Now it's switched. Antonelli bossing it with 156 points. So impressive given his tender age. Lewis Hamilton, of course, now second position, 90 points. Great consistency. And now for the first time at Ferrari, he now has more points than Leclerc. What does that mean, right? They had a fight before. We would have preferred Hamilton to drop out, but now Leclerc is not winning any fans with botched races, in Canada, and especially here in Monaco. George Russell, 88 points, really fading away. At this rate, he will be, having only half of the points of his young illustrious teammate. Some of the penalties might have been a little bit unfortunate, but as I said, we now gotten Russell, but now Antonelli has a 66-point lead, so actually he can just take it easy, be finishing maybe second like Rosberg was, a decade, 10 years ago, obviously in 2016-2016, when he won his World Championship. So yeah, it's really Antonelli's to lose now after what is effectively the first third or the fourth, depending how you see it, of the season. For Charles Leclerc, for Ferrari, stays there 75 points, but you can see with that 15 points, he and Hamilton would have been locked over here. Hamilton, I believe he would have been ahead. We would have been both at 90 points, and that would have been great for us. That's actually how it should be. But so, we on one hand want to support Leclerc, but it was really a silly mistake to make it. Very costly. Fifth, Lando Norris, McLaren, reigning world champion on 60 points. Well, no, it is Oscar Piastri now for McLaren, so he's gotten ahead of the reigning world champion, so he's on 60 points. Lando Norris, who again retired his sixth for McLaren, 58 points, 1,000 race for McLaren, man, really badly, and we love to see that. 7 is then Max Verstappen, Red Bull, 43 points, definitely out of the title, even though obviously, Red Bull were a bit strong of late. And 8 is now Isaac Hadjar for Red Bull, 29 points, only 14 of Verstappen, given that he has, you can see how powerful the podiums can be, especially at the early part of the season, and how costly the retirements can be. Then 9th is Liam Lawson, Racing Bulls, 26 points, and 10 is then Pierre Gasly, Alpine, 26 points, and he would have loved to have much more, so he would be close to his old nemesis and old teammate Verstappen. 11 is then Oliver Behrman has 18 points, obviously very, very unlucky this weekend. 12 is then Franco Colapinto, Alpine, 15 points. 13 is then Arvid Lindblad for Racing Bulls on 13 points. 13, unlucky number, not for the only rookie on the grid. 14, Carlos Sainz, Williams, 6 points. 15, Alexander Albon, Williams, 5 points. 16 is then Esteban Ocon, has 3 points. He will be thanking for this relatively lucky result for him. And then we have 17, Gabriel Bortoleto, Audi, 2 points, and 18 at the moment, Sergio Perez, Cadillac, 1 point. Quite amazing that in only the 6th race of their Formula 1 career, the historical entry, so to speak, the Cadillac has gotten the point, probably won't get any for the rest of the season, and that could be critical in their fight with Aston Martin, right? So then we have 19, Nico Hülkenberg, Audi, 0 points, but very unlucky. I'm sure he will get off the point soon. 20, Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, 0 points. Maybe he will be the one who will eventually get a point. Again, stay tuned. We will probably tell you in that race introduction to the Spanish, the Catalunya Grand Prix at Barcelona, the next race. 21st, Valtteri Bottas, Cadillac, 0 points. 22nd, Lance Stroll, Aston Martin, 0 points. Yeah. And over here, so this is how the driver's table looks like. Again, we are marching towards the title. Are we in the constructor's table for the 2026-2026 season? Mercedes is leading with 244 points. Us, obviously, as Scuderia Ferrari, over here, we are on 165 points, which means that we are 79 points behind. Big gap. But again, with the new directives, you know, if we go to Barcelona, maybe the Monaco has been a big disappointment, but Barcelona will be a fresh start with the new engine regulations. This could actually catapult us, you know, to being the strongest team on the grid. Third, McLaren, 118 points. Fourth is then Red Bull, 72 points. Fifth, Alpine, 41 points. Sixth, Racing Bulls, 39 points. They score really well. Look, you know, they pretty much, you know, vaulted up the table. Seventh, Haas, 21 points. 8, Williams, 11 points. 9, Audi, 2 points. And 10, Cadillac. Wow, 1 point. Or 11, Aston Martin, 0 points. Maybe that these positions, the penultimate and the final one, will change. And it has a big repercussions on obviously the prize money. So this could be very important also for Cadillac's future. But yeah, Perez made a silly mistake. You know, he definitely overshoot that grid slot, as you know, which I obviously didn't, but sometimes I had a problem with it as well. So this is how the constructor's table looks like in the 2026-2026 season. This is obviously how the driver's table looks like, and yeah, Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli absolutely bossing it over here. So how about me? You know, I also put it on the pole position. Obviously, Antonelli went a bit quicker in real life, but you know, I put in a fantastic time. My second pole position with the Ferrari SF1000 T818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator. But you saw it all ended, you know, basically, you know, on that Mirage going all the way, you know, into the hairpin, because you know, I locked the wheels, like I said, a little bit like what Vettel or like Leclerc. You know what he did, right? You would expect that braking performance, and you know, I've left a big margin. You know, definitely in qualifying I would be on the brakes much later, and yeah, maybe sometimes you really have to hit the brakes harder so that they deliver that performance, and that was hugely costly for me. You know, you could see in my voice that I was almost breaking down, because obviously now I'm only leading the championship by a point, but I thought the victory, or definitely maybe a podium, or at least you know, some healthy amount of points could break my Monaco hoodoo. But so far, my best result, 15th, can you believe it? I believe from 2016-2016. So we will again try next year, but at least we've gotten our second fastest lap. Now it's only the victory of the Formula 1 shiny Grand Prix winner trophies, these shiny golden trophies. You know, the trophy, again, the Monagas looks great. We enjoy the podium, obviously. It is very sad that Leclerc wasn't there, that he wasn't on a top step on the podium. But, you know, we hope he can iron out the mistakes. If not, then probably he will have to fight for the supremacy with Antonelli, who I see, you know, being a future Ferrari driver. But again, big congratulations. This is, you know, the first race that I think he really truly has laid down the marker to say, hey, I'm actually maybe the best driver on the grid. I can tell you, the new cars, you know, they handle quite differently, especially at the lower gears. So from obviously the next race from the Spanish Grand Prix, as we start the second, third, or the second, fourth of the season, depending the way you see it, we will be doing the new F126 lap. So definitely stay tuned for that, and maybe that's where Antonelli excels. So yeah, very actually interesting, exciting Grand Prix. Bit disappointing that we again haven't scored more points than Mercedes like we did in Canada. You know, we hope that the Leclerc over here can handle this, you know, especially mentally, that he can sort out the issues just like I. So I actually, you know, am pretty happy that we are racing next weekend in Barcelona, another of my favorite cities, where of course we have at least won several times. You know, Lewis Hamilton has some good and bad memories there. Obviously Leclerc, you know, lost the victory there in 2022. So I'm sure, same like for me, you know, we will all be gunning over here for some amazing results so that we can get back to the top, right? Right, so let me know in the comments below how you enjoyed the Monaco Grand Prix, and I really hope this drought without the victories will end soon, you know, especially in a real life, but now also in my career, right? I've never went without a victory for more than 2 Grand Prix ever since I returned back for the ground effect era season, so wish me good luck, you know, with that. Hope you enjoyed the Monaco Grand Prix. I was loving the weather. You know, there are so many people. It's only getting better and bigger every year. And it's such a joy to see because, yes, while it's the wealthiest place in Europe, I think it's also the best design, but it's also, I would say, the one that gives you the best lifestyle. And, you know, the people like Leclerc are very, very polite. So actually, it's a lovely place to live. Very friendly, with a great weather. And a great racing track. And a great events. So, over here, this was the Monaco Grand Prix, the crown jewel of Formula 1. This was Jan, the Smiling Sun champion, and now all we can say is that we love racing, we love Formula 1, we love Monaco,